represents, in one of the analysis that we do in CVP analysis is to calculate the break-even point. Okay, so this is the main analysis in CVP analysis. Okay, the main objective is to calculate the break-even point, and from there we can further analyze, okay, by looking at sales price, by looking at the quantity, by looking at the fixed cost. Okay, we would like to see the impact. So the first thing that we would like to know is the break-even analysis. Okay, so in this analysis, okay, we look at the volume, represent the break-even analysis, represent the volume of production where total cost equal to total sales revenue, resulting in no profit or no loss. So in other words, okay, in this break-even analysis, we are going to find out how many, okay, should the company sell, okay, when there will be no profit and no loss. Okay, meaning that the cost that you incurred to produce the product is equal to the total sales revenue. Okay, katakanlah the cost that you incurred is 5,000, the sales revenue from this products is also 5,000. So meaning that there will be no profit, no loss. So we are going to determine, so this is the point whereby it is very important to further analyze how many units that should be sold in order to make a profit. Okay. And also, okay, we will also be able, by looking at this break-even analysis, we should be able to also to look at what will be the reduction, the maximum reduction of sales that will lead to a loss. Okay. Okay. So if output of any product falls below that point, below the break-even point, so therefore the company will suffer a loss. But if the output, okay, exceeds the point, okay, of break-even, there will be a profit. Okay, so whenever you have a business, the first thing that you need to do is to calculate the break-even point. From there, okay, company managers will be able to plan what, okay, what they should do in order to have more sales, okay, than the break-even point in order to get profitability. All right? Of course, when you open a business, the objective is making a profit, not a loss. So this analysis is very important. All right? Okay, so in the break-even analysis, the level of activity of which total revenue will equal to total cost. So the total cost mentioned here the total cost mentioned here are both fixed and variable costs. Okay? Right? So what the total cost consists of fixed and variable cost is equal to the sales revenue. So that will bring to the break-even point. Okay? The level of sales at which zero. Okay, the level of sales which profit is zero. Okay, so at this point, okay, we assume we know that, okay, there will be no profit or no loss. So to calculate the break-even analysis, break-even point, okay, there are three ways. One is by using the equation approach. One is using the contribution margin approach. One is by using the CVP graph. Okay, now, so which approach that you should use? Okay, is it number 1, number 2, or number 3? Okay, it depends. Okay, there is no strict rules, okay, whereby you have to use the equation or contribution margin approach. Okay, you can use either approach. Okay, but for CVP analysis, it depends. Okay, it depends on the requirements. Okay, so if the question requires you to calculate the break-even point by using CVP analysis, then only you will prepare the graph. Okay, boleh? But the best method, okay, that I could suggest you is to use the contribution margin approach, because from using the formula, you should be able to further analyze, okay, the break-even point or other information that you can get from the formula, right? All right. So just now, okay, you have seen that there are 3 approaches. So what is the first one, which is the equation approach? Okay, so this is the equation. Okay, so this is very basic equation. Okay, so you have to memorize this sampailah mati. Okay, apa-apa jadi pun inilah the equation. Bukan equation saja, even when you prepare an income statement. So this is the basic principles to get the profit. Okay, whereby total sales minus total variable cost minus total fixed cost. Okay. Total sales minus total variable cost minus total fixed cost. Right. So how do we get the total sales? Okay, as usual, the sales price per unit times with the unit sales. How do we get total variable cost? Variable cost per unit times with the quantity. Okay, and minus the fixed cost. Okay, so from this equation, at the end, when you want to calculate the break-even point, the profit over here, the profit amount should always be 0. So when profit is 0, okay, you should be able to calculate the break-even point in units. Okay. The other method is by using the equation, the contribution margin approach. So this is the is an approach whereby you will be using a formula. Okay. All right. So what is the formula? Total fixed cost divided by the contribution margin per unit. Okay. Divided by the contribution margin per unit. So tak perlulah I mention what is contribution margin per unit kan. Alright, so we have covered this so many times. What is contribution margin? So how do we get contribution margin, class? Sales price minus the variable cost. Remember, it must always a contribution margin per unit. So sales price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. Okay? Boleh? Alright, so this one is the break-even point in units. What if you would like to have, we would like to know how much is the sales value? Well, how much is the value of the break-even point? Okay, at what sales revenue, whereby there will be no profit or no loss. The same formula, okay, but we will dividing the total fixed cost with the contribution margin ratio. Okay, so how do we calculate contribution margin ratio? Okay, you can use the total amount or per unit, you will get the same amount. Okay, contribution margin per unit divided by the sales price per unit or the total contribution margin divided by the sales revenue. Okay, so this is how you get the contribution margin ratio. So total fixed cost divided by the contribution margin ratio will get the break-even point in value. Another way of doing to calculate this is, okay, once you got the break-even point in units, straight away times with the selling price. Okay, straight away times with the selling price. But if you're using this method, there is a risk. Okay, there is a risk of getting a wrong answer. Because of why? If you got a wrong break-even point in units, okay, therefore, the break-even point in value will be also wrong. Okay, boleh? So it is better to check. Okay, you can use both. Either one to check whether, okay, you got the correct answer or, okay. All right. So this is, okay, if you're using a graph, okay, CVP graph, cost, volume, profit graph. Okay. All right. So the straight line over here, this is the fixed cost line. Okay. The green line over here is the total revenue. And the blue line is the variable cost. So as you can see, this is the area of the total cost. Okay, when it intersects with the total revenue. Okay, the total revenue is equal to the total cost. This is the point whereby it is a break even. Okay, so you can straight away get the figure from the graph. Right, so in this case, the break-even point is 2,000 units. Okay, so in order to get the profit, the company needs to sell more than 2,000 units to get the profit. If the company sells less than 2,000 units, the company will suffer a loss. So this is the loss area and this is the profit area. Okay. So this is, okay, if we are using a graph to determine the break-even point. Okay, all right. So there are two more graphs, okay, to get the break-even point. I'll show you later, right? So next one will be the margin of safety, right? So what is margin of safety? Okay, the keyword is safety, area of safety. Okay, so it is the difference between the actual or expected sales and sales at the break-even point. So this is the area whereby, okay, the company is allowed to reduce its sales, okay, before reaching the break-even point. Okay, so this is the area whereby the company will be able, is allowed to reduce its sales unit before reaching the break-even point. Okay, kalau you reduce the sales, okay, in the range, in the margin of safety range, you still making a profit. Tapi kalau reduce the sales quantity more than the range, so the company will suffer a loss. Okay, so let's see over here. Okay, so this is the formula. So if you are calculating the margin of safety units, the actual or the expected sales unit minus the break-even point. Okay, if you are going to calculate the margin of safety in value, okay, the expected sales or actual sales minus the break-even point. So this is the amount whereby you are allowed to reduce your sales before you are making a loss. Okay, so it is also can be expressed in terms of percentage. So if you got in terms of percentage, this is the amount whereby, this is the percentage whereby, okay, you are allowed to reduce the sales, okay, before, okay, making any loss. All right. So boleh reduce lah. Let's say the margin of safety is 30%. Okay, you are allowed to reduce the sales up to a maximum of 30%. If more than that, okay, you suffer a loss. Right? Okay, so another formula, okay, in CVP analysis, another analysis that we're going to use is the target profit. Okay, to determine how much is the target profit. So as I mentioned before this, okay, so in CVP analysis, instead of preparing a number of income statement, you can easily, okay, find how much is the target profit, okay, when that with a number of sales quantity, right? So again, either by using the equation approach, okay, ataupun menggunakan contribution margin approach. So this is the equation approach. So if you're using the equation approach, so this will be the target profit. Okay, by using this approach, you should be able to calculate the number of units that need to be sold, okay, in order to get the desired profit. Okay. So whatever it is, okay, kalau you are using equation approach, inilah, okay, the equation. Tak ada lain dah. You akan pusing on this area saja. Okay. But if you are using a contribution margin approach, okay, if you're using a contribution margin approach, so this is the formula. Okay, the required sales in units. Okay, if you are going, if you would want to find out the required sales for a given target profit, so fixed cost plus the target net income divided by the contribution per unit, contribution margin per unit. Kalau nak dapatkan the required sales amount, okay, sama saja fixed cost plus target profit divided by the contribution margin ratio. Okay, or the shorter way, if you are confirmed, if you are sure that the sales quantity is correct, so you can straight away times with the selling price to get the required sales in value. Right? Okay, now, so that one, if the profit given is before tax, okay, before deducting tax. What if the target sales, the target profit given is after tax? So therefore, okay, you need to gross up back the profit. Okay, you need to gross up back the profit. So the same formula applies, except that the target profit Okay, the target profit, you need to divide it with 1 minus the tax rate. Okay, divide it with 1 minus the tax rate to get the gross profit. Because, okay, to use at this analysis, okay, the profit that you should put into the formula is the gross profit, not the net profit. Okay, so therefore you have to gross it back, right, by dividing the net profit with 1 minus tax rate. Okay? All right. Any question? Right, so I've covered this one just now. Right? And addition to the assumption just now. Okay? In addition to the assumption just now, so sama lah. Okay? Okay. In addition to the assumption just now, okay, there is another assumption, okay, productivity per worker will remain unchanged. Okay, meaning that, okay, if you are using the skilled worker, okay, you assume that the level of productivity will be the same as per unskilled worker. Okay, sama saja, there is no difference. Okay, and also there is no change in the price level. We assume that the price level will be always the same during the analysis is being made. All right? Okay? The rest sama saja tadi, Okay. Next one. Okay. Uses of this analysis. Okay. Why do you use this break-even analysis? Okay. Number one, it helps in the determination of sales price, which will give the desired profit. So I dah cover tadi. To get to know, okay, to calculate how much should be the sales price, okay, in order to have a desired profit. Okay, to help the fixation of sales volume to cover given returns on capital employed. So we would like to know how many units that should be sold in order to cover back all the capital that we have invested. Okay, it also helpful for the company to forecast how much will be the cost and profit when there is change in the sales volume. Okay, it also will give a guideline, okay, if the companies would like to have a shift, okay, to change its sales mix. When there is a change in sales mix, what will happen? What will happen to the profitability? You can do this by using this analysis. Okay, and also, okay, it is helpful as well to make a comparison, okay, for interfirm profitability. Okay, let's say like you have a data on other companies' break-even analysis. Okay, by having this analysis, you should be able to compare your companies with other companies' profitability and break-even point. Okay. Okay, from that you can plan, okay, what should be done in order to compete in the market. Okay, it also helps in determination of costs and revenues at various level of output. Okay, so instead of, as I mentioned just now, okay, instead of preparing only one analysis, okay, ataupun more than one analysis with a different quantity, you can cut down the work by using this formula or the equation. Okay. Also, okay, it helps management in making a decision. Okay, decision of what? Okay, make or buy. Okay, producing a product, forecasting. Okay, planning purposes, and also what should be done to maintain the profitability when there is a change in the cost, when there is a change in the market selling price. Okay, it reveals business strength and profit earning capacity of a concern without much difficulty. Okay, so by using this, okay, if you have this analysis, for example, by looking at the profitability, okay, you should be able to determine whether, okay, this company is the cost ataupun the revenue that you receive from the sales, okay, is enough to cover the cost, and even to make a profitability. Okay, is it a big profit, a huge profit, or only a small profit? Okay, so you can look at this, okay, by using the break-even analysis. Okay, any question? All right, before we go to the limitation, all right, so what I want you to do is to all right, so this one. There is one reading material here that I've uploaded into Moodle. Okay, cost volume profit analysis. Okay, all right, so please read this reading material. Okay, now, all right, so just now, okay, to determine the break-even point, okay, the third method is by using a chart, okay, a graph. Okay, so there are three graphs that you can use to determine the break-even point. The first one, okay, is the one that I've shown you just now, is the break-even chart. Okay, is the break-even chart. Okay, so to draw this, okay, you need to plot, okay, the figure of total fixed cost, okay, the total variable cost on a graph paper. Same goes to the sales revenue. Okay, when the sales revenue intersect with the total cost line, okay, so this is the point whereby it is a break even, right? So this is the units. Okay, this is the sales revenue. At this 6,000 units, okay, this will be the break-even point. There will be no profit or no loss. At how much sales revenue? At 120,000. All right. So to make a profit, you have to sell more than the break-even. Okay, if you sell less than the break-even, you will suffer a loss. Right? So you have, when the question requires you to draw these charts, okay, everything need to be labeled. Okay, everything need to be labeled. Okay, now, so this is the first graph. The second graph is, okay, the contribution graph. So this is how the contribution graph looks like. Okay, all right. So just now there is a line for the fixed cost, right? But under this contribution chart, there is no line for the total cost. We only plot the variable costs and also the total cost line. Okay, plot, okay, the figure, the variable cost, and also the total cost. When the total cost intersect with the sales revenue, so this is the break-even point. Right? Boleh? Okay. All right. So next one. Okay. Another chart is the profit volume graph. Okay. So this is how the profit volume graph looks like. Okay. So what should we plot on the charts is only the profit area. Okay, is only the profit amount. So meaning that to use this, you need to know how much is the profit. Okay, for a number of units. Okay, how much will be the profit for 3,000 units? How much will be the profit for 11,000 units? Okay, so draw the line. So when the profit line intersect with the x-axis, so this is the break-even point. Right? Boleh? Right? So this is also important. Okay, sometimes, okay, instead of using the math, okay, instead of using the formula equation approach, okay, so if you're using a chart, okay, you will be able to look at in wide range, okay, what will be the effect on the break-even point? On the profitability. So instead of calculating a number of units, okay, so you can see the overall view on the break-even point. Okay, 6,000. How much would be the profit? If 12,000 unit, how much would be the profit? Okay, nampak? Boleh? Okay. All right. Okay, now, so in all the three graphs, okay, you might have seen the area of relevant range. Nampak tak relevant range over here? Okay. Relevant range over here. Okay, and also relevant range over here. What does it mean by relevant range? Okay, what does it mean by relevant range? Okay. Okay. Okay, outside this range, okay, the unit selling price and the variable costs are no longer deemed to be constant per unit, and any results obtained from the formula that falls outside the relevant range will be incorrect. All right, so now, so in other words, okay, when you are preparing a chart, okay, there should be an information on, okay, how much will be the variable cost, how much will be the total cost for this number of units, 4,000, let's say 12,000. Okay, so this is the figures that you plot on the charts, on the chart. Okay, dia akan berikan data for 4,000 unit, 5,000 unit, up to 12,000 unit. So this is what we call the relevant range. Okay, so the chart shows that all the costs, okay, variable costs and fixed costs will remain constant at this range. Okay, so outside the range, okay, there might be a change on the cost. Okay, there might be a change on the cost. Okay, nampak tak? So therefore, the result might not be the same anymore. So let's say lah, if the data that you got is between 12,000 and 15,000 units, okay, the break-even point will not be the same as what you did if the quantity is at 4,000 units to up to 12,000 units. Okay, so therefore you have to calculate another, okay, break-even point, or to draw another break-even point. Okay, outside this range, the cost will be different. Okay, so this break-even point is only relevant, okay, between 4,000 units to 12,000 units of sales quantity. Outside this range, okay, there will be a different break-even point. Faham? Boleh? Okay, so kalau you have another data, okay, you have to prepare another chart, you have to prepare another, you have to calculate another break-even point, because the price, the cost might be different when it is outside, okay, this range. Okay, because this break-even point is calculated according to when the price and cost at 4,000 and to 12,000 units. Okay, boleh? Kalau luar daripada this range, okay, jawapan akan berbeza. So you have to recalculate it back. Alright? Okay, any question? Alright, so if no question, your homework. Okay? Okay, your homework is from the same reading material. At the back, there is one question. Okay, I want you to try this question. Okay, question number 18. Z Private Limited. Okay, Z Private Limited. Okay, so try part A, part B, and part C. Okay, all right. So that is one. Another homework is the Okay, another homework is this question. Okay. CVP from the title that the title of this question in Moodle is CVP from B0 Jamie. Okay. There is Atlan. Okay. I want you to try. Okay, the first question, Atlan. Okay. Okay. Try Atlan. Okay. So there are two questions. Okay, as a homework. We will discuss it in next lecture class. This one sama je. Okay. All right, so try Atlan. Okay, any question? Okay, any question? Ada? All right. Okay, so if no question, okay, we'll stop our class.